Hello and welcome. I think I'm having funny audio issues. One sec. Oh, there we go. Fixed it. I was like, where's my voiceover? I couldn't hear it on the back end. Welcome, Hopeful Resistance. Aaron the Quill here. It's Sunday, the 26th of October. We got Halloween coming up. My kids are really excited because we're gonna go trick or treating. Everybody loves trick or treating. I mean, even I have a little bit of fun whenever I go out and trick or treat. So there's a lot to look forward to coming up on the home front. But on the other end, there is not a whole lot of great things going on. I talked about it earlier this week, and we're probably going to do just a whole arc on it, honestly, discussing the Law and Order comparison of MAGA versus, I guess, where we used to be. But, you know, there's some other things that we're going to talk about. We're going to dabble into a bit of the AI argument that Trump came up with on Reagan's opinions of tariffs and kind of the truth of the matter about that. If you've not seen it, Canada put that out. Basically just discussing the tariffs that they're coming under. I'm going to be using a lot of ums and uhs today. I'm going to try not to. I've been trying to actually just in general get better at not doing it as much. So there's going to be probably some pauses, probably some me taking notice of the fact that I keep doing it. See, there we go. And anyway, Law and Order. So the whole thing that I have been talking about this week, what I want to talk about for the coming weeks, is this Law and Order argument and how it connects to a lot of the MAGA identity and their opinions about Law and Order and how they view Law and Order and how the way that they view Law and Order is gross and disgusting because it's not Law and Order, it's authoritarian, militaristic insanity. So we shouldn't really be focusing so much on calling it Law and Order. Trump, as I demonstrated earlier this week, as I discussed earlier this week, and as I'm going to talk about more today, doesn't give a shit about Law and Order. The MAGA crowd loves to say that we're a constitutional republic, not a democracy. But that is not true on both fronts. We are actually, by definition, both of those things. But saying that we're just a constitutional republic is just eye-rollingly obnoxious, ignorant to what it means to be a constitutional republic. What's more infuriating is the way that they'll tout that and then have a complete disregard for Law and Order. It's like, I think I talked about it earlier this week, where it's like the people that love to scream Law and Order are confused by laws because they don't seem to understand that the president himself was convicted of 34 felonies. It's by and large a complete disregard for Law and Order. What they actually want is authoritarianism. They want a theocratic Christian nationalist state. They don't want a constitutional republic. They don't want a democracy. They want a king, a ruler that they believe is appointed by God, so on and so on. These are the things that Charlie Kirk loved to shout about RP, whenever he was out there doing his thing, whenever we see people like Steven Crowder out there. And the reason why these people are disingenuous, or why these people should not be taken, they should be taken seriously in that they are a threat to our democracy, but they should not be taken seriously because they're not serious people in terms of what rhetoric they're trying to sell. So all that is to come back around, what I want to focus on, hyper-focus on today, is pardons. I did a video earlier this week where I was talking about the people that Trump has pardoned, and like George Santos or Christopher Manheim. If you're not familiar with each one of those, you go check out the short. I put them out earlier this week. Both of them, in their own ways, should not have been pardoned, and President Trump pardoned them. So here we are on the other end of that, with the pardons having gone out. That being said, I've had people in my DMs, I've had people, email me asking or pointing out that Obama pardoned way more people. That's true. I'm not going to dispute whether or not Obama pardoned more people. because it's not about the number of people, it's about the motivation behind the pardons and the difference between them. So if we talk about, for example, why Obama pardoned so many people, I think it's worth analyzing Obama's entire policy idea, which I want to talk more about policies next week. I want to this week I really want to focus on the pardons, and then next week we'll deep dive a little bit into the policy positions of each of them. As we know, Trump is garbage with pardons, or with, sorry, not with pardons. He's garbage with pardons, but he's garbage with policy. Not very good policy-wise. More, he focuses on the executive action, right? Writing executive orders to kind of push things through, bypassing Congress, he stacked the courts, so bypassing the courts, we don't care about any of that. So let's bring it back around, okay? So one of the things that we need to talk about is if we're going to compare, Barack Obama and Donald Trump in terms of their use of the presidential pardon, it's worth noting that both of them, in their own ways, have exercised the clemency powers that the office allows them, but that they did it in different ways and that each of them had different focuses, okay? The presidential pardon, by and large, it allows the president to grant pardons or to commute sentences specifically of individuals that are convicted of federal crimes, and it basically forgives them, and in some cases it restores their rights, like the right to vote, for example, because whenever you're convicted of a felony, you lose a lot of your rights. That's just one of the things that happens to you whenever you commit egregious crimes. So what I want to do is I want to take a deep dive today to look into who pardoned more people, what they were pardoned for, and kind of the broader impact of the pardonings that each one of them committed, right? So let's start with I talked a lot about Obama last week because the MAGA crowd is absolutely fucking obsessed with Obama. So last week I did a whole thing where it's like, first off, Obama was way more politically savvy. I talked about him by and large, and I pointed out that it's been 10 years. Obama's long gone, and MAGA's obsession with him is because they hate him because he was just a better president. So to bring it back around, though, let's talk about the pardons in large. So Obama granted, this is an exact number, I have it pulled out. Obama granted 1,927 pardons. That is the most pardons in a single presidential term since Harry Truman. I didn't actually look up how many Harry Truman had, but Obama pardoned more people in his single presidential term than Truman. He also did 1,715, I'm going to say this wrong, commutations. Commutations, there we go, I think that's right, commutations, where he commuted sentencing. So a pardon would be if you're already, well, both of them if you're already convicted, but a pardon would be that you're already serving your sentence and that you're pardoned, whereas a commutation is basically you've not been sentenced, or you've been sentenced and that they commute the sentence so you don't ever actually wind up going to prison. So that would be a total, like the grand total of it is 3,642 clemency actions. But all of that was in an effort on the reform of the justice system, right? It's worth noticing. It's worth noting that nearly all of, or a lot of, Obama's pardons were nonviolent offenses. So a significant number of them were individuals that were convicted of nonviolent drug offenses, right? Like people that use drugs, mostly, as I understand it, mostly marijuana-related drug convictions. It was also pointed out that these were people that had especially long, disproportionately long sentences due to mandatory minimum laws. So depending on, you had these minimum times. So let's say you were, you caught with marijuana, and the minimum sentence for the marijuana, the amount of marijuana that you had was 10 years. Well, that would be a disproportionately long sentence, right? And so Obama was pardoning people for that. Because it was just possession. We were not caught selling, not in the possession of a firearm. We're talking like non-violent drug offenses. And maybe they did have a firearm, but we're not talking about a dealer that like shot an addict that was trying to rob drugs from them, and that's the guy we pardoned. We're talking more people that like generally were caught with marijuana, which now is way more legal than it was whenever Obama was president. Let me grab my water here. Oh. This is good water. I got some ice in it. It's really, really cold. So many of the pardoned individuals, okay, they were involved with drug offenses. It seems that, yeah, a lot of them were, I just said this because these are my notes, and obviously I pre-read them. But the other one that I didn't mention is that it was that some of them were also convicted for ones that were related to cocaine. So it wasn't just marijuana, it was also cocaine. Both of which have been a huge contributor to the mass incarceration of especially Black and Latino communities. And in the Fair Sentencing Act, this was in 2010 that Obama signed into law. It basically aimed to reduce the disparity between crack and powder cocaine sentencing, and many of the people that were pardoned were people that wouldn't have been incarcerated under the new law. So he was pardoning people so that basically, if you look at it like this, Obama passes a law in 2010 called the Fair Sentencing Act, and the people that wouldn't have been in jail for as long as they were because of that act, he pardoned them. He's like, that was a part of passing of the act. But there were some other ones. Okay, that was just the majority of them. That's why he has so many, because this is the thing that the MAGA crowd will do, is they'll be like, well, Obama pardoned more people. Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Why did he pardon those people? Because they'll never put why he pardoned them. They'll never talk about the Fair Sentencing Act. No. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. What we're going to focus on is the number of people pardoned, the motivations, the intent. None of that matters. What matters is that Obama pardoned more people. Okay. And then we talked about this last week, but then they won't give Obama credit for deporting more people whenever they're obsessed with deportations because he did it in a legal way. He did it in a more just way. No, we don't care about that. Okay, and at some point we need to sit down and talk. I think we already did back whenever me and Mom were co-hosting together. Is Obama deported more people, but it wasn't as screamed or yelled or talked about on the simple premise that he did it in a completely different manner, mostly a legal one was the biggest reason, but they don't give a shit about that. They don't give a shit about immigration at all, really, because they didn't give a shit whenever there was a bipartisan bill that was going to be passed under Biden and Trump shot it down. They didn't give a shit about any of that stuff. But I digress. We're getting way off, or we're veering off track as we do here on Hopeful Resistance. That's just a part of the show, as many of you know. But let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about the notable pardons that Obama did. So the first one has to be talked about, Chelsea Manning. Okay, Obama commuted the sentence. Chelsea Manning, if you're not familiar, is an Army intelligence analyst who in 2017 was convicted of leaking classified military information. Manning had their sentence reduced from 35 years to 7 years, and after 7 years, she was released. I know this was one of those decisions that was highly controversial. Okay, critics were basically calling it an unjust reward because it was someone who had violated national securities. And then other people had viewed it as a push towards government transparency, basically as a move to reduce the harsh punishment for whistleblowers. I think many of you know who Chelsea Manning is. I thought I had it pulled up. All right. I want to make sure that we're clear because I get that some younger people may or may not remember who Chelsea Manning is. They were basically the one that whistle blew that we're basically all being looked on by the man. Also she's trans woman. That was another thing. I know that the MAGA crowd doesn't talk about Chelsea Manning anymore, even though Chelsea Manning basically confirmed a lot of their crazy conspiratorial ideas about the leaked materials, right? Because anyways, that Chelsea Manning, if you want to know who it is, just look her up. She was a whistleblower for the NSA. So let me get back. The next one that we should look at is Oscar Lopez Rivera. Okay, this is also in 2017. Obama commuted Rivera's sentence. Rivera was a Puerto Rican nationalist who was convicted of conspiracy to overthrow the U.S. government. They'd served 35 years for prison in their involvement in the FLAN. If you're not familiar with what that is, the Armed Forces of National Liberation, a group that claimed responsibility for bombings in the 1970s. His case became a rallying point for advocates of Puerto Rican independence, and those that argued, and there are many that argued that his sentence was disproportionately harsh. So, again, you should look some of these people up. These are just some of the bigger names that were pardoned that had nothing to do with the drug offenses. Those are the two big ones. And then, of course, obviously, the last one were the hundreds of drug offenders that were pardoned during his terms. So I think we should look at Obama's philosophy, right? If we're going to talk about the people that Obama pardoned, it's important that we talk about the philosophy behind the pardonings, okay? And we're going to do the same thing for Trump because the comparison is a night and day in terms of ideals, okay? Obama's clemency approach, okay, was basically influenced by his heavy belief in second chances and the idea that we needed to reform the criminal justice system, right? Because he even Obama and many of his supporters, it's basically the idea that the justice system as it was, back in 2010, whenever he was doing a lot of these reforms, was overly punitive. It didn't really focus on rehabilitation, right? Like most modern prison systems focus more on like rehabilitating criminals. Instead, what it focuses on, or what our current one focuses on, is the more punitive punishment action. So his efforts were basically targeted at individuals that were seen as like low risk, right? Most of the people that he pardoned, actually I would say all the people that he pardoned, were low risk reoffenders, or they were low risk, like it was just low risk crime in general. And basically that they shouldn't have their entire lives destroyed for like low-end nonviolent drug charges, okay? He saw it as basically the sentences didn't match the offense that they had committed, and that's why he pardoned people. Most of the people, the majority of people that he pardoned, that was the reason. So now we need to take a look at Trump. Okay, we understand kind of Obama's philosophy. I talked a lot about it. I pointed out, again, there's no disputing that Obama pardoned more people. He 100% pardoned more people. What we need to talk about now, though, is Trump's use of clemency. And that is because Trump's use of clemency, while he does pardon less people, he is highly selective with the people that he pardons. And it is almost always politically charged, okay? Because it's a focus. All of his pardons were basically, they focused on individuals that had high-profile cases, right? Or connections with him or his allies. He granted a lot of pardon and I'm going to say it wrong again, commutations. I think I said it right, actually, to a variety of individuals, okay? Most of them were political figures, celebrities, and then I think there were actually some, if memory serves, there were, and I don't know if my notes cover this later on, but some of them were also like criminal justice reform people. But his clemency actions also had, they were basically focused more on populist elements, and they were definitely way more controversial. The count that I have doesn't count the J6ers, which is over 1,600, and that, of course, is where Christopher Monahan comes into play, because that's the guy that I talked about earlier this week, who was the guy that threatened Hakeem Jeffries. He was convicted of terroristic threats. Not convicted, charged for terroristic threats. So let's take a look. So total pardons. Trump pardoned 143 people and had 62 commutations during his, I think this is just his first presidency. This is obviously less than Obama. It is, again, worth noting that most, though, of his pardons were politically motivated. So Trump focused on celebrities. He focuses on business figures. He focused on political allies. That's why it included people like Michael Flynn, his national security advisor, or Roger Stone, who was a political consultant. Okay, and I'm going to talk about in detail kind of all of those people, and I think we'll definitely need to talk about the more recent ones. Although again, the short I have kind of covers those. We talk about George Santos. We talk about Michael or Christopher Monahan. I keep trying to make sure I say that guy's name right because he does have kind of a crazy last name. So, excuse me. Oh man, I thought you were tired. Good water. All right. So Michael Flynn. So Trump pardoned Michael Flynn in 2020. Michael Flynn, if you're not familiar with who that is, he pled guilty to lying to the FBI during an investigation about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Flynn's pardon, of course, was seen as an abuse of power, okay, because he was only pardoned because, like most of Trump's pardon, because he's just a political ally, okay? His charges were pretty serious because they were related to national security, and but most of the supporters basically argued that the effort was correct and that they didn't view it as a politically motivated, or they viewed his prosecution as politically motivated, not the pardoning. Although I guess by that argument, both of those things would be politically motivated, right? Like if he was prosecuted, then his pardoning would also have been political. So I love the way that this is the thing I talked about too this week is MAGA loves to play both sides, where they love to pretend that they're morally superior or that they have the more popular opinion, while also playing the I'm the victim card pretty much every chance they get. The term that you'll commonly hear used in the online alt media space is they're cry bullies. Whenever you were in elementary school and someone would bully you and then you would hit them and then they would cry and then you would be the one that got in trouble and they never got in trouble, that type of behavior. So the other one that's notable is the Roger Stone. So in 2020, Trump commuted Roger Stone, excuse me, who was a longtime friend and ally. He was convicted of lying to Congress for obstruction and witness tampering in relation to the same Russian investigation. Trump's decision to commute Stone's sentence was viewed by many as an attempt to shield his ally from legal consequences. This is something that is patently true pretty much across the board anytime we're discussing the president, because by and large, that is exactly the people that he pardons. So I talked about this earlier this week. I've said it a couple times now. We're probably going to keep talking about it because many of the pardons that come through are always someone who is a political ally or close acquaintance to Trump. Some of the most noticeable ones that are being talked about right now is that Diddy asked for one, though the White House did come out and say that there's no way that they're going to commute Diddy or pardon him. We'll see. The more notable one, though, is Ghislaine Maxwell. There is a discussion to pardon Maxwell of her charges, which, as far as I'm concerned, would be the most egregious pardoning ever. I wouldn't put it past the administration because they are patently disgusting with most of their behavior anyway. And we know that there is the Trump and Epstein connection. So, of course, there would be a Trump-Maxwell connection. So, and Maxwell did what they wanted, as far as we could tell, where she said, oh, no, he's not involved at all. And that would be the motivation behind pardoning her. So let's talk about the clemency philosophy for Trump, though. We talked about Obama. Let's talk about Trump. So Trump's philosophy for clemency basically are always politically, either political or personal. It's got nothing to do with whether or not there is some attempt for reform at all. It's literally just it is the outright abuse of the clemency power of the office. So because many of the individuals, they're either people that have close communication with him. They're well-connected individuals. They're high-profile figures. They are pretty much almost always connected to people that are loyal to him or have helped him politically. So that's why we look at people like George Santos, for example, or the J6ers. those are people that are loyal to Trump. And so to maintain that loyalty, we're going to give them clemency and kind of make what they did okay. So he also tends to grant, but it is in here. I actually do have it in the notes that Trump did also grant clemency to individuals who had been involved in criminal justice reform advocacy, which reflected a limited but real interest in criminal justice issues. I think, yeah, because I think if I remember some of them, like some of the more celebrity connected there was Alice Johnson, right? Where you had like Kim Kardashian West, or I think she was then, who basically lobbied on behalf of Johnson. Johnson was serving a life sentence for a first-time nonviolent drug offense and was granted clemency in 2018, released from prison. And then Trump publicly acknowledged that Kim Kardashian's role was like the reason that he did the pardon. So, all right, now we'll look at the comparison. Let's break down the comparison of the two. Okay, so if we're going to talk about the number of pardons, yes, Obama had more pardons. Okay, I talked about this earlier. So Obama had 1,927 pardons, 1,715 commutations, but there was a strong emphasis on criminal justice reform that was especially connected to nonviolent drug offenders. Whereas Trump, and again, most of this is only first term, for Trump, we're looking at 143 pardons with 62 commutations, but pretty much all of them, or there's a significant number of them, because it wasn't all, right? We have Johnson as an example of not all, but a significant number of them were political allies, celebrities, or extremely controversial cases. And most of those controversial cases were because they were connected to Trump loyalty. So we've talked about the focus of the pardons. So Obama's pardons and commutations, we're going to talk about this a lot next week, where we talk about the broader criminal justice reform agenda that Obama was pushing. Okay, and I might hop on Wednesday, but really, I think we're going to be doing big shows on Sundays, and throughout the week, I'm going to try and address specific things, either with a shorts model or, if depending on the topic, some video essays. But we'll see. I work a full-time job, so we're just working within the confines of my schedule, which is kind of been going through some alterations lately, where I'm spending more time commuting. I'm spending more time out at the office versus time at home, where I wouldn't be doing stuff during work hours, obviously, but I would be not having to commute to and from the office. Save me a lot of time. So anyway, we'll talk more about this next Sunday, the policy side of things, because again, Obama was hyper focused on criminal justice reform. Okay, he wanted to reduce sentences of those that were convicted of non-violent drug crimes. He wanted to correct sentences of people that were basically given disproportionately long drug times, especially whenever we're talking about mandatory minimum sentencing laws. And he really wanted to work around and address the racial disparities within our criminal justice system. Something too important. This is the thing that I think is important to note, that I will probably need to talk about at some point, because it needs to be addressed just in general. Whenever we talk about the racial motivations within our criminal justice system, the acknowledgement of these things, I would argue, is extremely controversial, because the right will love to talk about how Black people commit more crimes without discussing what drives that statistic, without pointing out that there is a massive disparity within the criminal justice system that Obama was trying to correct within his own means, because most of the convictions, they were related to nonviolent drug crimes, which, I mean, like, there's a lot of truth there. We wouldn't need to get into it today, though. Okay, so when we talk about, I thought I had this. I guess I got a Discord notification. I'm like, what? Because I'm supposed to be in streamer mode, but it, like, pinged me off. Oh, okay. Somebody helped me out. Okay. So the next thing we should talk about is Trump did in fact sign the First Step Act, which, if we're not familiar with what the First Step Act is, let me make sure I pull this up, okay? Because again, in all fairness, because the First Step Act, this was in 2018, okay? It was an idea to reform federal sentencing and prison policies, okay? Basically, it looked at things. This is a lot to go down, and we'll probably need to talk. This is the stuff I was saying we're going to talk about next week, because whenever we need to, if we're going to talk about if we're going to talk about pardons, we're going to talk about motivations. Yeah. Nope, 3. Okay. We're doing dinner prep. Oh, excuse me. More water. Okay. Policy next week. Hyper-focus. Come on, we got it. Okay. So his clemency actions, basically, I talked about this already. They were focused on high-profile individuals. They were focused on his personal allies. He pardoned political figures like Flynn and Stone. He dealt with there were some celebrities. I think he pardoned Lil Wayne and Kodiak Black. He also pardoned some other individuals whose sentences were overly harsh, much like Obama. Sorry, that note. So I should probably read this the way the note is. Okay, while we're talking about all of the political people that Trump pardoned, it's also worth noting that we should be talking about that there were some individuals that basically he pardoned because their sentences were seen as overly harsh. And it was the same thing, particularly nonviolent drug users. The thing that's worth noting is that whenever we looked at the people that were pardoned, it was because they were advocated for, though, right? Not like Obama was looking for an overall criminal justice reform agenda, where that was never Trump's real goal, right? It was most of his clemency were focused on symbolic political acts more than systematic reform. Because Johnson would be the prime example of someone that is pardoned for a nonviolent drug offense, but that was only because of their connection to the Kardashians. So, yeah. So let's talk about political and social impact. Okay, Obama's pardons, okay, basically should be viewed as like a larger or a broader reform-oriented agenda, right? Where he's basically attempting to redress historical injustices. He's looking for basically to try and restore the faith and fairness of the law, because this is something that I found in my research today. I mean, both Obama talked about law and order a lot whenever he ran. Trump obviously goes on and on about law and order, or at least his base does. His pundits and some of his other political allies will talk about how much law and order matters. It's just not really reflected whenever we like break things down at all. So, because Trump's pardons were almost all, the majority of his pardons, I mean, even this week, they spark a ton of political controversy. Okay. Where it basically is like Trump uses the clemency as a reward to anyone who's loyal to him, so that way they can basically be free of any consequences that their loyalty brought upon them. This is something that we saw almost explicitly with the J6ers. You have like 1,600 people that are pardoned by Trump for their crimes committed on during the J6 insurrection. And then you have a lot of them turn around. Some of them are thrown back in jail for child abuse, for, child porn, whatever. I don't give a fuck, child porn. I mean, you have the guy that was just recently, the biggest one that's been talked about recently is the Christopher Monahan, because of his terroristic threats towards Hakeem Jeffries. So it wasn't so much that he was using his clemency like Obama, where he was using it to restore faith and fairness. He was instead undermining the fairness by pardoning people that basically were his allies. And he would use the argument that he was pardoning them to right the wrongs of the politically motivated prosecutions. How much time we got? Yeah, see, we're doing good. So let's let's break this down and come down to the grand conclusion of these comparisons before we get into the news this week, before we talk about the how do you get politically involved. So the conclusion is, and I'm just going to read this out because I had this kind of written out. So while Obama granted far more pardons and commutations than Trump, the use of his clemency was primarily aimed at criminal justice reform, particularly addressing the disproportionate impact of drug laws on marginalized communities. Whereas Trump's use of pardons was often used as for self-serving or politically motivated, favoring allies, celebrities, and individuals who were personally connected with him. So while both presidents pardoned individuals involved in nonviolent drug offenses, Obama's focus was on reforming the justice system, while Trump's was focused on political and personal demonstration. So yeah, that's the main topic this week. If we're gonna talk about Law and Order again, we're probably starting a big arc. We're just gonna be talking about the Law and Order argument because I'm really, really, really tired of the MAGA crowd trying to stand on some moral high ground, like they're the ones that are the Law and Order people, the morally superior people, whenever the president doesn't demonstrate that at all. So, and let's get into something. So I put up a Threads, I want to say it was a couple days ago, where I was discussing, or I pointed out that, you know, the MAGA crowd has gone pretty mask off lately. And by mask off lately, I mean, let's get over to the to exactly what it is that I'm talking about, because I know that it's not, people aren't gonna view it this way. So here we go. Well, let's talk about Kenneth Leland Morgan. Okay, this is the Georgia man that was arrested for hitting women. You can see here, Mr. Leland, Mr. Morgan, excuse me, is Leland Morgan, here in his Nazi uniform. He's just having a great time, just all dressed up like an SS officer, because it's all just a big joke and it doesn't matter at all. Okay. I despise these people. I can't even begin to discuss how much I despise them. So I want to also try and open up here. Let me see if I can get this to open where I want it to. Okay, maybe not. I want to show there is a video for this that definitely needs to be kind of looked at here. So I'm going to bring this over.
Fuck you! Hey, Rocky! Fuck you!
So this is a video that was taken outside. Okay, there are some videos, you can find them on X, where that's where, for example, excuse me, that's where this picture is taken, where he was basically like standing outside. So here he is, just involved in a violent brawl outside of Cutter's Pub in Athens, Georgia, leading to the arrest and aggravated assault and simple battery. The incident has divided the internet, it says. I don't know how the fuck you get divided siding with a dude who's wearing a Nazi SS uniform. This is not, this is a lot of the responses that I've seen from both pundits and nobodies has been, oh, well, that's free speech. That's the America today. Like, no, fuck that. You don't, there was a time where it was unfathomable that some idiot could walk around in a Nazi SS uniform and not get treated the way that he got treated. I think it's super telling and honestly good for the people that fucking called him out or kicked him out or didn't let him in. Fuck this guy. Honestly, fuck him. Okay? So it says right here, the video has been widely circulating on X, formerly Twitter, captures a heated brawl taking place outside of Cutter's Pub in Athens, Georgia. As seen in the viral video, the altercation began when a man wearing a Nazi uniform was being restricted from entering the pub, which prompted a group of college students present to confront him. Initially, the man stood his ground, slightly grimacing, but not immediately retaliating. However, the situation quickly escalated after he allegedly struck a woman, leading to a chaotic and violent exchange between him and the students. The man involved has been identified as Kenneth Leland Morgan, who was subsequently arrested in connection with the incident. The video has sparked widespread debate online, with many expressing shock and outrage over the aggressive behaviors, while others are calling it self-defense. I've seen the opening video, and it's literally him standing outside the pub laughing, and he sticks his arm out, and then you see her hand here. She pushes his arm away, and then he hits her. And then, of course, we see the action after the fact. So one of the things that, and I guess the rest of this article isn't loading, which is rather frustrating. So here he is again. We're just having a good time. Mr. Morgan here, he's just so happy that he finally gets to wear his Nazi uniform with outside. Isn't it great? He's having a great time, this guy. Okay, so the incident involving Morgan has drawn widespread condemnation, which is good. That's good. That's a good thing. It should receive condemnation because, again, fuck this guy. Some have come to his defense, arguing that it was simply a Halloween costume as part of the tradition of dressing up as controversial or frightening characters such as Satan or other evil figures. If you're making the connection that someone dressed as Satan is the same as someone dressing as a Nazi uniform, I could see in some way that you could connect those two if you are Christian and you hate Nazis. Fair. Honestly, fair. I don't think, however, people dress up as Satan. They dress up as Satan ironically, whereas no one that's being honest is dressing up in a Nazi uniform ironically, especially in the current political climate. You don't get to, like, maybe I mean, you'd be a fucking idiot, but maybe you could have done this 10 years ago. Maybe people wouldn't have been like, oh wow, that's so funny and ironic. It's just one of those things that you don't joke about. There was a world war with these people. They killed millions of Jewish people during the Second World War. We fought them on two fronts. This isn't like that. Like it's not something that you joke about. It's not an ironic joke. And even if it is an ironic joke, there's probably a better time and place for it than walking around Athens, Georgia, on October 25th, because it wasn't even Halloween. If he went to a Halloween party, why the fuck is he walking around Athens, Georgia after the fact? But okay. Many also claim that if Morgan personally holds Nazi beliefs, that alone shouldn't justify denying him entry to a public establishment. Some users also said that he hit the woman in self-defense after he was heckled by multiple people. Fuck you. Being heckled does not automatically justify you hitting people. You can go fuck yourselves. All of you. Anybody that agrees with that, go fuck yourself. That's wrong. It's nonsense. It's bullshit. We could talk, if we can talk about the free speech absolutist, because most of the people that are defending him, and this is the problem that I have with a lot of the legacy media news reporting, is they're not going to point out the people that are saying that it doesn't justify denying him entry to a public establishment. Yes, it does. I'm sorry, but it does. It's not a public fucking establishment. It's a private establishment. It's a pub. So this whole argument that it's a public establishment, go fuck yourselves. No, it's not. It's a private establishment. They don't have to let him in. So they got no right to. Okay? So apparently there's a controversial Project Kenneth campaign that has emerged on social media with several users attempting to rally support from Morgan. As a part of the effort, some individuals have started a GoFundMe fundraiser on his behalf. Oh man, you know that means. Here we go. GoFundMe. I don't think this is it. Okay, no. Okay, okay. Good luck to that guy. I mean, I don't know what he's there for. Excuse me. What was the name of it? Let's go back. Project Kenneth. Project Kenneth campaign. Okay, so no, this isn't the same one, right? In Morgan, I lost my job. No, different guy. Good luck to you, sir. I assume. I mean, I don't actually know. Okay, so I guess we can't see anything there. I guess we could just do this Project Kenneth Morgan. Oh wow. I guess we'll have to do a little more into this because if Fuentes, what did Fuentes have to say about this? So Fuentes slams Morgan, man dressed as Nazi. Is there anything more or less than that? Okay. Fuentes, the white supremacist Goldberg man, is criticizing someone for walking around in a Nazi uniform. In 2025, I don't even know what to fucking think anymore sometimes. So, what else? What else is coming around today? So I saw this. This is new. This actually was just published today. So Trump long erratic on the world stage, which is a new level, whether because of his increasingly mercurial approach or despite it, President Trump has won some forced policy victories in his second term. The question is whether he can build on his record. I'm not entirely sure, but I think, yeah, see, this is talking about, okay, so 9 months into his term, President Trump's approach to his allies, adversaries, and competitors around the world has proved a strange mix of successes and increasingly frequent and erratic eruptions. Whether he is dealing with Canada or China, Venezuela or the Middle East, or the war and control in Ukraine. Without question, Mr. Trump has enjoyed some substantial second-term foreign policy victories. European allies are now on track to spend far more on their own defense than they imagined a year ago. Several presidents have demanded, but Mr. Trump forced. He has intervened to help diffuse a number of long-running regional conflicts, even if some of his claimed successes prove temporary. His biggest achievement to date, winning the freedom of the 20 living hostages held by Hamas and a fragile ceasefire in Gaza, required forceful, skillful handling of the reluctant Israelite counterpart. I don't feel like we should give Trump credit for this. Maybe partial credit, because another reason that this came to, and I am not sure if this article is going to address this, is the fact that Europe also did some state recognition for Palestine, and there was a lot of more, I guess, like physical pressure put on Israel by Europe. So I don't feel like it's necessarily fair to give the full credit to President Trump for that. Again, maybe partial credit. I also don't want to shy away from the fact that Trump had some part in it. People have long called for there to be, ceasefires. There were several seasons. There's a ceasefire under Obama. There was a ceasefire under Biden. These ceasefires don't last for one reason or another, whether it's because Israel likes to come out again and start dropping bombs and killing civilians, or whether it's Hamas, doing another October 7th. I mean, these two sides have been basically a conflict with each other for a very long time. And so it's great that the hostages got brought back. I know that there's also supposed to be some release of hostages from Israel to Gaza. We'll see, I guess, how that goes. Okay. But if anyone let's continue. But if anyone expected Mr. Trump to grow into a kind of global statesman that most of his predecessors sought to be remembered as, they have been sorely disappointed. True. Never known for consistency or niceties, Mr. Trump has only grown more capricious in his conduct of foreign policy, a tendency on full display as he begins to swing through Asia to confront a combative China and allies, uncertain of what he wants or how to deal with him. This is also true. One of the biggest concerns right now is that there are countries in Europe that are going to start signing trade deals with China because we've not signed trade deals. People love to keep talking about the world in which Trump is making all these deals, but he's not making deals. It's all like verbal agreements that aren't like deals are like trade deals are like decade long deals that you like draft and write and sign. Things like NAFTA, for example, which again Trump crumpled. But before that, these were massive things. These small, short agreements that we have, they die in a week, right? Like we had to deal with Canada, or a deal with Canada that he basically threw out the window with the Reagan video that they just put out, which I want to address also really quick. Something I was going to talk about. Trump keeps trying to say, "Oh, it was fake." The audio is real. It's real audio taken from a radio cast that Reagan did. So no, it's not fake. You're just retarded, as usual. So sorry, let's carry on. So this is a quote, says, "The president has an instinctual feel for countries' vulnerabilities and pressure points," said Richard Fontaine, the chief executive of the Center of New American Security and a former advisor to Senator John McCain. "This sometimes produces leverage he uses to produce ends, which we saw in Europe and Gaza and the Iran strike, but also has downsides. Not long after a fruitful meeting with Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, Mr. Trump shut down trade talks in a peak on Friday because he did not like a Canadian television advertisement that featured the true voice of President Ronald Reagan from a 38-year-old radio speech, warning of the long-term cost of tariffs. On Saturday, he went further, slapping additional 10% tariffs on Canadian goods. This is important to note. Things like this are not possible if you have a fucking trade deal. That's why we keep saying there are no trade deals. It was supposed to be 90 deals in 90 days, and we don't have that. So this is a move that could cost American consumers billions, simply because Mr. Trump was unhappy with the ad, which was created by the Ontario government. So this is another thing that's worth noting. It will cost us money, because whether or not people like to embrace it, and they'll talk about, oh, we have a deficit surplus, or we don't have a deficit surplus yet. We had a surplus last month. Yeah, our money, we paid that. That's why things are more expensive. So not only are we paying more at the grocery store, which of course we are paying more at the grocery store, regardless of what Trump says, we are also paying a shit ton in tariffs. So actually, that's probably why we're paying more at the grocery store. Those two things are connected. So, yeah, looks like this is going to continue on. I am not going to read all of this. I just wanted to come and take a look at it. This is because we do need to start talking about how to get politically involved. I just wanted to get an idea of what this article is talking about. I'm probably going to read the rest of it off stream. So what else? I guess that's kind of it. Kind of all we're going to talk about today. Now we get into the next thing. So one of the things that we always talk about here, because I want to make sure that there is some kind of separation between I love watching people like Adam Mockler, or I love watching, or at least enjoy on some level, watching the political content that the online pundits like Destiny, or Pondering Politics, or Luke, what's that guy's name? Luke Beasley. If we talk about all these people, one of the things that they do is kind of similar to what we are doing here, where they're talking about and giving their opinions on the political sphere in which we are currently existing. One of the things that they don't talk about, that why I like to talk about a lot here, is how do you get politically involved? Now, that's different for some of them, because some of them do talk about ways to get politically involved, and a lot of it is, of course, supporting pundits like those people. In particular, right now, one of the big ones that we're going to talk about here shortly is like the Unfuck America tour is a great example of a way of a means in which you can get involved physically. If you want to get involved physically, though, then there's other ways that you can do that. So let me close. We're going to go back over to the share, but I want to talk about all the means by which you can get involved. Oh no, what did I do? And I think that it's the reason why these things are really important is because too long or too much do people like go on and they watch these things, but nobody really gives them any tools, or nobody gives them any processes by which they can start to get involved in the world, or not in the world, but involved. Yeah, that's right. Involved in the world of politics. Because if we want to talk about what separates the two things, just talking about politics versus actually getting involved in politics, it's just really important that there's some kind of understanding that the means by which you can do something. I've always been the kind of person that likes to think of myself as if I'm passionate or if I care about something, then I want to do something that's actionable, right? Voting is obviously, we have midterms coming up. Voting is the number one way that you can be politically involved. I would argue it's your civic duty as an American citizen to get out and vote. If you're like, that's just not if, you should just get out and vote. I also think it's important to note that people will say, oh, your vote doesn't matter. That's bullshit and not true. People will like to say things like, well, both parties are the same, also bullshit and not true. And if you want to at me, fucking go for it. Okay. We'll talk about why you're wrong, because on those things, you're wrong. You're just patently wrong. The two sides are not the same. They are grossly not, they're like, that's giving Republicans way too much fucking credit whenever you say, oh, both parties are the same. So the first thing I like to talk about every time we come on the show, Five Calls. Okay, Five Calls is an app. Again, we are not endorsed. I'm endorsing them. We are not sponsored by them. This is my own personal thing. Five Calls is an app by which you are able to contact your representatives. So what you can do is you can download the app, you put in your address and your zip code, and it gives you the name of your... Excuse me, I'm gonna yawn. Oh, so sorry. It gives you the name of your representatives, and it gives you specific things that you can talk about. So, for example, on this one, if we talk about one of the topics that it's got on here right now is basically investigate the Trump administration's extrajudicial killings. This is talking about the 9 civilian vessels that have been struck by U.S. forces in the Caribbean and Pacific, which they are claiming are drug boats. Maybe they are, but there's no way anybody has been able to prove that, and Congress is also not authorized military force. So what you can do though is you can come on here and you can click that, and then you can click on. I'm not gonna show you who my. Actually, no, this is one of my senators, so that's fine. It shows you who your senator is. It gives you a phone number by which you're able to call them. I'm sure my screen's really bright, so you probably can't see it super well. Let me see. Maybe I can lower my brightness. That way you guys can kind of get an idea. Oh, wow, that's too low. I did it too low. Hold up, guys. Because like sometimes where you lower the brightness and then... Oh, yeah, see, there you go. Oh, no, it gets bad. Oh, right, because it's auto-adjusting. My bad. So... Anyways, so this would be if I was calling my senator, and then it gives you a thing where it's like, hello, my name is blank, and I'm a constituent from blank. I'm calling to express my concern about the Trump administration's repeated military strikes on civilian boats in international waters. These attacks lack legal authority, are killing people without due process, and highlight the administration's lawless use of military force. And so then it would be like, I would like to ask the senator to, and then it gives you a bunch of options, things that you would like, right? And you could read it before you call. But, like I would like them to conduct public investigations into legal authority of the attack and call for the resignation of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense because he's fucking incompetent. Or to call for the resignation of Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, and so on. And then you can just, you can call and just read the script. If you call between the office is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you call during that time, you're going to get an aide. That's okay. You get an aide, talk to the aide. Most of them are just taking your message. They're just documenting that you called and what your name is. And it doesn't tend to be like an argument or a discussion. Sometimes I've heard of people getting in arguments or discussions. That's not something that you want. If that's something that you're into, fuck it. Give them a call during hours. But if you're not interested in talking to a person, if you call after hours, you will go to voicemail. If you go to voicemail, you have to make sure that you leave your full street address, or else your call will not be tallied. So the reason why calling is the most effective means in which you can contact your representatives, whether it's your House representative or your Senate representatives, one of the reasons that calling is because they have to record the call. They have to record it. They have to notate it. They have to tally it. It's an important part of the, political process, is that they have to note that you contacted them. They don't have to note if you send them a letter. They don't have to note anything else. It's just they have to have a means and by which, whenever you call, they have to have a mean. They have to track that. So calling is the one I recommend, and you don't even have to call and talk to a person. You can just call and leave a voicemail. It's super easy, cut and dry. The second one that you can do, and I'm going to switch over here so that way we can take a look, is the card campaign. We always talk about the card campaign every week. This is, again, we are not sponsored by any of these. These are just means and methods by which you are able to get politically involved in your own way. So the card campaign, what it lets you do is it lets you print out these cards so that you can see there's all kinds of cards in here, and they have a lot of different things. And whenever you click one of these, it gives you the card, and then you are able to either order printed cards or you're able to copy, like literally open these and save them and print them yourself. Okay, either one. Obviously, it is better in a lot of ways to order them, right? Because if you order them, then you're giving money back to the card campaign, and a lot of these people are, come and look, they're volunteer. Okay, so it's a great way to kind of fund this project is to buy the cards, but you don't have to. So you could see that, of course, it's got the the cc4democracy.com, and so then people can click this and then they can go and kind of look into what these things are. One of the things that I've talked about is like, okay, well, where do you leave this? I've seen people recommend that, like, oh, you could leave it on your table whenever you go out to eat. No, I wouldn't do that. I would say that the best place to leave them is, by and large, at places that you wait. So if you're in a waiting room, like in a doctor's office, you could leave one there, or leave several, so that way a lot of people can come and collect them. Waiting rooms are probably the best place to leave these, and it's just a way to get information out there. And if you're helping fund this in the card campaign, I mean, that's kind of their whole thing, is like what they're, see, in introverts, they give you little guides and ways that you can do it. I actually meant to come and look at these the other day because it gives like an event and a pick party. You could do art fairs, concerts, food fairs, circuses, sunny days with a whole bunch of people at the park. I've seen a lot of the card campaign stuff out at Protest. I did not go to the last No Kings protest, but I went to the first one that we had earlier this year, and there were people out there with card campaign cards. So it's a great way to see. It talks about food courts, boats and car shows. You can do parades, local city council meetings, farmers markets, all kinds. Okay. Oh yeah, and last of all, a Trump event happening near you. So, and then of course, in Introverts, guys, this is where it talks about ways that you can do it. So like bookstores. Ooh, this is actually some really good ones. Talk about the grocery store gambit, the bookstore, car park, transportation dumps, cases like car service or taxi, buses and trains, airplanes and ferries. Again, like I said like doctors and waiting rooms. Those are great places to leave them. So again, the card campaign, go check it out. They're another good one. If you want to get physically involved, you should check out both 5051 and Indivisible. So both of these websites are for as exactly what you would think they are for. This is for the physical act of protesting. If you want to get out there on the streets and be with a bunch of people, or you want to start your own protest, yeah, this is hands down. These are both solid websites that will keep you well informed. Or if you can't find something close to you, you can start something close to you if you're interested in doing that. I would highly encourage you, if you're able, to get out and protest at least once. One of the reasons that I think it's such a great idea to get out there and protest yourself, and why these tools are really good for getting out there and doing so, is because it can, in its own way, be like a battery recharge moment. You spend a lot of time online, or if you're working with a lot of people that are maybe in support of the administration, or maybe you live with a family that's in high support of the administration, getting out to a protest, at least right now in the current political climate, is a awesome way to kind of recharge that battery and find yourself surrounded by like-minded people that kind of all see the things that you see or feel the way that you feel. And it can be very reinvigorating for you to get out there and kind of be a part of it. So check out 5051, and it's literally 5050.1. So they show like a bunch of ways that you can get involved. Some of it is obviously less involved, like boycotts, and then some of it is more involved if you actually want to get out and protest. And the same Indivisible is exclusively protest, and you can put in where you live and find protest near you. I'm gonna yawn again. Excuse me. All right. So, besides those, if you want to get physically involved, you can check out the Unfuck America tour. So, this is a tour that is going around the United States. It's kind of similar to the Charlie Kirk method, where they're going to college campuses and talking to young people, and they're getting out here and they are basically talking about TPUSA and how they got 45 million voters out, and they went to 3,500 different college chapters, and they were basically trying to convert campus presence into electoral power. And then again, yes, I agree, Democrats failed to match this effort, and so Unfuck America is an effort to basically flip it the other way. So right here, in response to disparity in 2024 election results, National Ground Game launched Unfuck America Tour, to build a counter-electoral strategy. NGG was founded to address the disconnect in the election results and create a lasting working-class electoral infrastructure. So, and then they do have a lot of creators in here. So, of course, we have Stephen Destiny Bonnell, we have Amy Zillmer, Andrew J.D., Anna Pledger, Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's a real guy, good guy. Camp Callout, she's also awesome. Talk about CFG Unfiltered. Chelsea Gods is out there. Corey McGuire, I like her. Ooh, I like Dom Henderson a lot. Really, as a veteran, I love other veterans. We got Ethan Alexander. Some of these I don't know. Ooh, yeah, Kayla Turner. That's not so erudite. She's really good. And so you can see the names go on and on and on. Oh, hey, we do have Niles Grindal. So this is the Soy Pill. I like him a lot too. Oliver Nihilis, and yeah, the list goes on and on. Oh yeah, and Z Cohen Sanchez. She is basically like really, really heavily involved. Z is. So get out if you can't get out there physically, and you don't want to get on the phone, and you just want to throw money at a thing. This is a great thing to throw your money at. So just something to look at, because they are going out and they are getting young people, which is really what we need right now. I mean, you go to some of these protests. I know the MAGA people were mocking it. Go to some of these protests, and of course, there's the older crowd is out there, which is really a good thing, because they're the voting crowd. So if they're out there, I mean, that's a good sign. So that being said, I think that's gonna be it for today. So just a recap on the whole episode, just if you come in late, the whole first half of the show was basically explicitly talking about the pardons between Obama and Trump, and the kind of drastic disparity between the motivations behind those pardonings. Then in the middle, we hit on some of the more, I guess, current things. I know the big one right now is the Nazi guy that was charged with assault, who was walking around in a Nazi uniform, and kind of the MAGA, I guess, opinion on that. Again, I posted something on Threads. It kind of blew up, and I just wanted to give like a really solid take on my opinion of that entire situation, because fuck that guy, like for real, fuck him. So, and it's important to understand why. So, yeah. And then here we are at the end, as always, just pointing out and discussing ways that you can get politically involved. You don't want to, if you want to do that with as little influence on, I guess, on your life as possible, but you still are pretty passionate about it. I just like giving people great tools for it. Anyways, that is going to be it for today. Thank you all for joining me, all 6 of you. And we're just going to keep going. I'll see you guys next week. And until then, take it easy. Bye.